Hello and welcome. My name's Leanne. I live in Australia and this is my crafty cupboard. Good morning. I'm back with Roxy's Journal of Stitchery Volume 4 Treasure Hunt, where I'm making a Victorian sewing box. And our prompt this time was trim. And I had a few thoughts. Well, first of all, I thought, well, wow, I've actually sort of really done trim because when it was time to do lace, I didn't really have a lace to use. And so I used this lacy trim. Now I do have an exquisite piece of lace, which was sent to me by Christine, Create and Craft with Christine. Thank you so much, Christine. I am definitely going to incorporate this piece of lace somewhere into my box. At the time that I made this, I also showed this other piece of trim that I'd purchased from a little shop in Japan. You know, at the time, the shop was just exquisite and I had to have something, and I had no idea what I would do with these treasures. So, I mean, this one goes beautifully as well with the piece. So I could, you know, still use this trim somewhere on the piece. As well, Christine had sent me this lovely beaded panel. And I think, you know, something like this would just look stunning. Oops, we've lost a little bead there. I'll put you aside safely so I can stitch you back on. Just finding a safe home to put this little bead. Okay. You know, either on the lid of the box or on one of the side panels, although the sides are quite small. Like, this is the only outside side I have so far, and you can't use much, and the top section has to be left fairly plain for the lid to be able to fit down over on it. So I feel like it will need to be the lid to give this its the treatment of which it's worthy. Unless I just used, say, a small stem, you know, like that down on the side, but then it just sort of loses its impact to me. I think I'd much prefer use this on the lid somehow. And also, the other thing I was thinking about was many years ago, just because I was bored and wanted to, I started making a beaded trim, a beaded edge. So it's just on this ribbon. And I thought this colour goes beautifully, and that might look nice, you know, hanging down from the lid of the box. But it's the inside of my box that's the mauves. The outside's blue. So imagine that's the outside of the box. You know, and it's hanging down over the sides like this. Whoops. Let's do it this way. So hanging down over the sides, and there's the sides of the lid, like this. Which I feel is a bit much. I feel like then, again, everything's not getting its due spotlight to star. So I might still use this somewhere on something on the inside of the box, or it might still just hang around waiting for its moment. I really like the idea of this edging a scarf, actually. I think that would be beautiful. But anyway, that's that trim. So yeah, I think let's work with putting, playing around with this trim on one of the sides maybe, or the beaded trim on top. Okay, so I've got this laid out where I'd like to use the piece, like I'm not sure if it shows on the video, the little white outline of the edge of the box. And so I'm probably going to be making the cut here and around here. So we'll lose that and that. So that looks like sort of a nice end point with the round bead on it there. And then here, you know, it'll branch out. What about here? Or maybe just here. For now I'll keep these as well. These ones as well. Looks like I've lost one there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch the parts where I'm about to cut down, just to secure them to make sure. So I've just got a really fine beading needle. So just that once I cut through the sewing threads, that they won't be lost. I'm just keeping the stitches behind and under the beads. There we go. Just secure it. Hello, Mr. Pusscat. Hello there. What are you doing? Would you like to come and sew with us? I just might secure it through that round bead one more time. Oops, where'd I go? Pulled my own needle out. Let's try again. What a windy day we've got today. Okay, I can feel I'm attached to a bead. All right, I'm going to come through to the back. And secure off. So this is just normal sewing thread that I'm using that matches the thread that they've used. It's a perfect match actually. That gift I was given of the tray of sewing threads has been honestly the best thing. Anytime I want to do a project, just open the drawer and there's threads that match close enough. And I might secure the other side as well so that they don't disappear once we've cut. Where am I cutting again? This one, right? Might come up here. Hasn't it been fun to watch everyone else's videos with them playing with all the trim that they have? Beautiful. This project is a lovely idea that the Roxy sisters came up with, isn't it? This treasure hunt, because too often people hoard their treasures stashed away in a box somewhere. And this brings them into the spotlight, gives them the attention that they deserve. I think it brings great joy to everyone who's creating. but also great joy for others to look at when the creations are finished. Okay, hopefully that's enough to secure everything. If not, you can always stitch them back down again. Cut. Righto. So time to commit to cutting. This is the nerve-wracking bit, isn't it? All right, so we're going to cut along here. And yeah, along those beads. Along here to keeping that one, and then cutting through this section here. Fingers crossed I'm not cutting my newly sewn thread as well. Okay, now what about here? I think this is a bit close to the edge, so we might keep that attached to the other piece. All right, pop that aside for many other projects. Gosh, isn't it gorgeous? Now, do I want it like that along the flat edge, or do I want it sort of along the angle edges? Like that. Goodness. Choices. It's hard to choose, isn't it? It really does look quite lovely along the angle. It's probably going to look lovely either way, is it? All right, so memorize that, Leanne. And then turn it flat. There'll be other things added to the lid as well, like I'm going to go full on with the lid. In the interests of making a decision and moving on, I'm going to go with the angle. Although I will say to you, I'm not 100% sure if that's what I want, but I think it'll be lovely nonetheless. So that's sort of up the side. I want this centered down the center. Maybe I should do a couple of little pins. Where is my Victorian Sewing Box little pin cushion? Here he is. Could you please hold some fabrics in place? Once again, when I'm pinning, I'm trying to not buckle. I can't wait till this box is complete and gets to sit on my work table every day and be useful as well as beautiful. bit like myself, really. Oh dear. Okay, let's stitch it down, shall we? So I might start at the centre and work my ways out. And there'll be, you know, stitches that hold these beads together. And so I'm just going to anchor down over the top of those so that the stitches disappear in between the beads, but that the piece is held down. I haven't done this sort of work since my wedding dress. It's a very enjoyable, relaxing form of stitching because the beauty's already been created for you by whoever did this, and you just get to stitch it down. Well, in the case of my wedding dress, I had lace, and I stitched down beads on top of the lace, like it wasn't already beaded. I couldn't afford the beaded lace pieces. So I spent many enjoyable nights over a few months stitching the beads and sequins down on the lace. I'm not going to do every single bead, that's probably a bit overkill. Maybe every second or third bead. Let's check how we're going. Good, fabric's not buckling too much. I'm thinking with the lid to pat it out slightly as well, you know, give it a bit of a domed appearance. Not too much. I feel like if I go too much, it's going to be creased and buckled at the edges that aren't padded out. And like a bull at a gate, I went ahead because I was so undecided about so many things, and I cut out this fabric to cover only the top section. And in hindsight, I should have made it larger to cover the top and the sides, therefore effectively joining the sides of the box lid to the top of the lid. So now I'm not sure. I guess, I don't know if I cut out the fabric for the sides. I feel like I possibly did. I guess what I can do is use a different fabric if need and cut those sections wider so that their overhang, you know, once they're covered, their overhang will get sandwiched between this and the inner lid, therefore effectively joining them all together. I'm sorry for bumping you. I've misplaced my list of the things I wanted to include on the inner side of the box. So thank goodness for YouTube, because luckily I filmed myself writing that list, so I can just go back and watch that video and see what things I still have to make for the inner part of the box. Alright, we can get rid of that pin now. Okay, so you can see, sometimes I've taken quite large stitches just to move on, and keeping it nice and flat so that it doesn't buckle. Okay, so that's that second piece anchored down. So I'm going to continue anchoring all the beaded sections down to this, and I'll pop back on at the end and show you when they're all stitched on. Okay, so that's all stitched down now. And I put back the bead that had fallen off. I think it was this one. I'm really loving that so far. Beautiful. Okay, so that's all for the trim for this piece, and I'm going to set it aside. As I mentioned, this is the very top of the box, the lid, and so I do envisage this to be sort of quite, 3D and a lot more elements yet. So I'm going to wait and see what the future prompts are to keep adding to that piece. Having to be patient yet again. These projects are very good for teaching us patience. And I went away and I checked on my computer on the YouTube video from before where I wrote the list of the things I wanted to include. And the only thing left on that list I haven't done yet was an elastic or something like that to hold in tools. So, for example, things like this little needle threader. So what I was thinking was, seeing how it's trim prompt time, and I have this trim that I love, instead of using an elastic, I could just make another pocket with trim. But just when I attach it, leave it a little loose, just to allow for, well, it's too big anyway, some tools to go in. Yeah, that's too big. So it would only be tiny tools that could go in there anyway. Maybe a little tube of needles and whatnot. So I'm going to stitch it to a piece of the scrap linen. Stitch the trim to this piece of scrap linen, and then when we glue it down, we'll make sure that we've sort of allowed some room there. All right, so I'm just using this Gutermann that was in my stash. It's a silk thread. It's the best match for the fabrics that I'm using. This is the minuscule beading needle threader. You probably can't even see the wire, can you? If I put it against something dark. It's my cardigan. We're having the craziest weather. I'm wearing a cardigan. I'm really, really cold. Just the other day it was 36 degrees and we were sweltering. I don't understand. Anyway, so I have to be brave again. Of course, using these pieces means chopping into these pieces. And I want to get that flower and these two little flowers in. So I'm thinking of chopping it down at that leaf line and sacrificing part of this flower. Okay. And this has got lots of ends everywhere that weren't cut off from the embroidery machine, so might just take a moment to get rid of those now, because once it's stitched down and they're sandwiched in forever, that could be annoying. Might just tidy up this linen piece while I'm at it. So the sides and the bottom of this piece will be sandwiched between the cardboard. So I need the top edge. That needs to sort of be secured. Excuse me while I have a sip of latte. It's chai. It's delicious. Okay. So let's see. These white marks show the edge of the cardboard. I don't know whether to cover the large flower with this large flower or to keep that large flower and have this large flower. I feel like it's a bit much, isn't it? I think let's cover the large flower. Okay, so my plan is just to stitch this across. I'm wondering if I should. I think I should, because if tools are going down and coming up, they might get trapped if the edges are raw. Yep, I think that will work well. Let's commit to that. I'm worrying about going all the way to the edge, given that, as I mentioned, the edge will be tucked under in between the cardboard. I am a bit worried about the bulk of the linen. But again, whatever's being tucked under the cardboard, I could just remove some of that bulk. It's almost impossible to see this thread. Just looking at my outfit today and laughing at myself, because I dressed for a warm day and of course it stayed very, very cold, and I was too engrossed in my sewing to go upstairs and change into warm clothes, and so I've just gone to the front closet and taken whatever I could find. So I've got a completely mismatched colour cardigan and some fluffy bed socks under my summer dress. Hello. I feel quite satisfied with the prompt for this time, being trim. I've been able to make use of 2 beautiful trims. And still, there might be hope for the 3rd in the future. We'll see. It was one of those moments making this beading that, you know, I think it must have been that I'd recently gotten the A to Z of beading book or something. I'll have to look through and see if that's where this has come from, that pattern. Or maybe it was a magazine or something, I don't know. I just remember being absolutely in love with it and couldn't find a purpose for it at that point in time, but just knew I wanted to do it. And so I used the beads that I had in a combination box. Got busy. Righto, there we are. Got there in no time. It's much quicker than hemming my daughter's pants the other day. They were a wide leg trouser. Absolutely lovely pants. But tell me, why do they make women's trousers so long? It's insane. We have to cut inches off. It's just... And then I wonder, like, does this extra leg length actually suit really tall girls anyway, or is it still too short for them? Why is it that men can buy trousers in 2 leg lengths, but women can't? Okay, so this, as I mentioned, is sort of stretched where they've stitched down the bottom. What shall I do? I think I'm just going to do some running stitches to treat this as one piece, if you know what I mean. But not worrying about the fact that the edges are raw because they'll be sandwiched. These can be a lot quicker and happier stitches because they're not on show. Done. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to set up for the pieces to glue all this together and I'll be back. So happy to have recently found my quilting clips again. They were in the bottom of a project bag, so I must have been going away to sew with friends or something and threw them in the bottom of the bag, whereupon they disappeared straight to the bottom underneath all the other contents, never to be found again for a long time. Okay, so this is the cardboard piece that this will belong to, and I'm just going to glue the base piece first, just to not have to deal with. It's a very enthusiastic glue, this one. It keeps coming up out the top even when you've stopped using it. Sorry, what was I saying? Yes, I'm going to glue the base piece down first, just so I can concentrate on that. probably should do is get organised. Oopsie, I've got some glue already. And remove the bulk of the corners. Then if I use some of this glue that's been overexcited, it just wants to come out and play with the other kids. All right, let's get one side. So if I just skedaddle this down to the line, really should have drawn the lines on the other side, hey? But then it wouldn't have been so easy for me to work out what's going on the front. I'm going to do the opposite side. This glue grabs really quite quickly, but I'll clip it just to make sure as I'm pulling tightly. But we're not going to unstick anything. Let's give you a little clip. Clippity clip. Right, tuck those corners in so that they're covered beautifully. And the last side. Nice. Right, just give that a little second to take hold. Let's get this piece ready. So I want this one to sort of be as close to the bottom as possible. And these wrapped around the sides, and then I'll trim off. We can already trim off that excess, can't we? Because we know that much is going to be wrapped around. All right, that should have held enough by now. Right, so the crucial part is getting the flowers on. Right, so I sort of want it like that. And the bottom sandwiched needs to come down just a little more. And that bottom's not going to get sandwiched in anywhere. Okay, so the bottom can get glued first of all. I've been very generous with that seam allowance down there, have I? Could have done with more linen. Never mind. Okay, now before that dries too solid, Want to make sure that we've got room for things to go inside. All right, let's get you in. What else did we say? Maybe like the unpicker, maybe a skinny roll of thread. Okay, now this side is quite skinny, so let's do this side next. And of course, I possibly should have stitched them together so then I could treat it as one, but that's all right. We'll add extra glue to get the lace trim stuck down. Okay, and I can see some threads being naughty there. Let's make sure they get some attention. Get a clip on them straight away. And a clip at the top. And a clip in the side. Okay, now this side. Is that enough room to play? Yes. 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 Plenty. Okay. So this one I'm simply not going to pull very tight. Just going to leave like that. Pew. A bit more there for good measure. Okay. Got that lovely little trim pocket and the trim on the lid. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Can't wait for our next prompt and see what I get to add to the box next. Really appreciate you watching and leaving your like, or to everyone that comments, thank you very much. It's lovely to have that little chat with you. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. So these are the inner pieces of the box so far, and I've got one panel left to make. So I'm curious, what do you think I should make on this final pocket on the inside? What could it be used for? I'd love you to leave a comment below.